relationship continued for a little while longer, but something else happened that ended our relationship. And it was when I went away for a weekend, I came back. There was something in the trash can in the bathroom that someone had been in my house, and they left evidence behind it. When we were engaged to get married, 6 months before the engagement, he had someone in our home that we were planning a life together, and bought stuff and furnished a home and everything, getting ready to get married.
Yeah.
He slept with someone, brought someone in our home. And
Oh,
slept
wow.
and had an affair while I was away that weekend. And so I went home to find out that he started coming around talking to he had sense, and he was talking to me about he missed me and all this kind of stuff. Well, he was covering up something that he had done over the weekend while I was away. And when I found evidence of the feminine hygiene in the bathroom, I asked him, was any visitors over? Did you have some guests over the weekend? And he said it's his brother and sister, his brother's girlfriend and his brother were visiting him. And I felt something in my gut that he was lying to me. And so I said, really? I said, really? They came over? Oh, okay. And I went along with the story. So then I grabbed a phone, a cordless phone at the time, and I went outside and I called his brother.
Whoa.
His girlfriend answered the phone. And they live right across the street from us. So I called her. I said, Angie, I said, this is DeDe. I just want to call. And I have a question I wanted to ask you. I said, were you and Don visiting Mark this weekend? And she hesitated for a minute. And she's like, no, DeDe, actually, we haven't seen him all weekend.
Wow.
I said, really? Oh, okay. You and Don were not here visiting Mark this weekend at all? She says, no, we haven't seen him all weekend. I said, okay, Angie, thank you. Well, at that point, I knew what my gut feeling was telling me happened. And so I went back in the house and I said, Mark, I said, what are you lying to me about? He says, what? What are you talking about? Well, I found out that he tried to defend that someone came over, and it wasn't just Angie and Don, it was someone else, and making up another story. And I said, stop it. I said, because your brother and Angie haven't seen you all weekend, so stop lying to me and just tell me the truth. So he would not fess up to it and tell me that someone was there, which made me more angry. And so I said, we're done. We're done. The wedding is off. There's no way I'm going to marry you. You brought someone else into our home.
Yep.
And you lied about it, telling me that it was the brother and sister-in-law. I called them. I called Angie. And she did not come here all weekend. She hasn't seen you, and Don hasn't seen you.
Wow.
So stop lying to me. So I started gathering up my things, and he was taking things out of my hands and not wanting me to go and wanted to talk to me. And
of
I said,
course.
There's nothing else to talk about.
Yeah.
Also, he was very flirtatious with other people. We go to the grocery store together, and he's talking to the cashier and flirting with the cashier in front of you. So it was like, okay, I put up with that kind of stuff because he was doing it in front of me, and I thought he's just,
that's just him.
Trying to make me jealous, and this is in the beginning. Okay, this is cute. He's just innocent. He's not really doing anything wrong. He's just playful. But then it got to where it was hurtful. So this was the final straw to me.
That's disrespectful.
He lied about it. Yeah, totally different situation. And he acted upon something, his desire or whatever, and brought someone else into our home and disrespected our home. So at that point, I could no longer be with him. And all the other hurts added up to this, and this was like the final straw. And so I called my mother and told her that I would like to come home possible, could she and my aunt come and pick me up? Because we had started talking briefly about the wedding, about stuff coming up. We sort of worked things out where I was, we were in a relationship. It was estranged, but it still was a relationship. And she said, "Okay, DeDe, you want me to come get you now?" And I said, "Yes, please." And I was crying on the phone, hysterical. "Please come and get me, please." And so she and my aunt came. And the funny thing about it is we had just had a crawfish boil, and there was seafood in the fridge. He, not me, we, but he had crawfish boil. There was crabs, and there was crawfish and shrimp in the refrigerator. And so my aunt knew that we used to have crawfish boils and stuff. So she asked, "We'll come and get you, but do me a favor, if you don't mind." She says, "Could you grab some of the crabs? bring the crabs. When we pick you up, would you bring me some crabs?" And I said, "Okay." I was crying. "Okay, Ellie, I'll get you some crabs. I promise I'll get them. Okay, we'll be there." And she hung up the phone, right? And so they came and they drove to Chalmette. It was a 30-minute drive. And as they were picking me up, I had just a bag of clothes, overnight, not an overnight bag, but a nice sized tote bag full of stuff.
Okay.
But everything I picked up, he wouldn't let me take. The TV we bought together, he wouldn't let me take. The scuba diving gear, he wouldn't let me take. We both bought everything together. We decorated our house together. The sofas, the chairs, the bedroom furniture, all of that was ours. We both bought it. And he wouldn't let me, the sewing machine, he wouldn't let me take anything.
So you just left with what? A bag of clothes?
Clothes that I could fill up a tote bag with, and shoes I threw in a bag.
So he wouldn't even let you have a suitcase?
Nothing else.
Wow.
Everything I picked up, he took out of my hand. I was just like, okay, I don't need all this stuff. That's fine. But I am not staying with you. I am not married. It's over. I'm not married.
Wow.
So you could have it all. I don't care. I don't want it. You worried about the stuff? Go ahead and keep the stuff. And so I left. And so I get in a car and we're driving away. And the first thing my aunt says, "Okay, dry up those tears. What are you crying about?" And I told him what had happened. I found the women's feminine stuff in the bathroom, and he lied that it was his brother's girlfriend.
And what sister-in-law leaves her hygiene stuff? I mean, me personally, whenever I have something feminine hygiene, I put it under some other trashes in the trash can. I don't just throw whatever it is on top. I bury it underneath something else.
Right. This person probably wanted me to see it. You know what I'm saying? Like, that was the only thing in the trash can. How could I not see it? And it was, it was a feminine hygiene thing that I knew. Wait, what?
It wasn't yours.
It wasn't mine. Yeah, because the trash was empty other than that in there. So it was planted there. It was part of her, whatever. I don't know, but I just know it was there. And he lied.
She got him now.
Yeah. Well, so anyways, my aunt, the first thing she's saying, dry up those tears. Don't waste another tear on him. If he did you that, that's wrong. And so then she says, "Okay, so I want to know, where's those crabs?" I said, "Aunt Lee," I said, "he wouldn't even give me the crabs. He wouldn't let me take the crabs." Yeah, I said, I grabbed the bag out of the refrigerator, but he took the bag out of my hands. He wouldn't let me take them. He says, "You can't have those either." And she said, "Oh, no, you mean," she says, "you should have waited till he went to work and then take all your stuff. You are too stupid. You should have waited." And I said, "Aunt Lee, I don't care about the stuff, and I don't care about the crabs."
No, ma'am. Look.
And she's like, "You're just like your mom. When she divorced her husband, she didn't take anything." Yeah. And I said, "Well, you know what? It's not worth it. Those are just being memories of the past. I don't want them."
But no, that's what I did. Your aunt is right to a certain extent. My first marriage was I thought he was my knight in shining armor because he hit me or anything, but after we got married, and we got married on April Fool's Day. Who's the joke on?
Yes.
I was the big fool. So he used to, and I was in high school. I left on my birthday, March 28th. But that year, it was Good Friday. I didn't realize that City Hall and stuff is closed on Good Friday. So we had to wait until the next week, and he had to work that Monday. So we ended up going on April Fool's Day. We got the certificate, the marriage certificate, and we got married at a wedding chapel on April Fool's Day. And something told me, no. The Holy Spirit was like, you don't have to do this. You know you don't have to do this. But I felt in my heart, I was like, no, because my mama ain't going to let me live with my grandmother. My grandmother was like how you was describing, you used to go downtown with your grandmother, and that was y'all quality time together. My grandmother helped raise me. My mom was a teen that got pregnant and was living at home with her mom and dad. So, of course, when I came home from the hospital, I came back to their house, her house, where she was living with her two younger brothers. And, of course, I hear her calling her mama. So what do I do as a baby? Call, obviously, this lady is named Mama. So I start calling her Mama. Well, my mom is a narcissist to her heart, okay? So I know if I would have stayed, and I had one of them knife experiences too with my mom, but I wasn't lucky enough to make it to the bedroom and close the door. She pushed me against the back door and stabbed the knife into the door right by my head.
Oh my goodness.
Yes.
So that's a similar situation.
Yes.
Wow.
So that's what I was dealing with.
The anger.
The anger.
And that's what my mom said years later, that if she would have got to me, she probably would have killed me. She would have stabbed me. Because she had rage in her.
Yes.
She was not herself.
No. Nope. So I dodged a huge bullet.
Okay, so on our drive home from Florida,
okay,
Mark mentioned to me that my family had called.
Okay.
I don't know, he says, I don't know how to tell you this, but your family called, and your sister, Lisa, said that her dad died. He passed away.
Oh, your baby sister.
My baby sister's dad, July 12th.
Wow.
So that weekend was my birthday weekend.
Okay.
And he didn't tell me that they called before the trip was planned. That was a birthday weekend. Okay. It wasn't necessarily on my birthday, but it was like right after my birthday. And he withheld that information because he didn't want to change plans on my birthday weekend celebration. So he withheld that from me. And as you know, what happened, I almost died, almost drowned there at in Florida at the jetties. Well, when we were driving home, I noticed he was quiet, and that's when he said, I have to tell you something. So as he began to tell me, I looked at him and I said, you knew this information and you withheld that from me?
Wow.
That should have been my decision to make, whether I wanted to go on this trip with you, Florida, or I wanted to be with my family. And I said, you withheld that from me. And I just started crying, and I was shocked.
Wow.
And I said to him that you are that selfish, that you wanted to make sure that we went on this trip at whatever it cost me, like knowing how that would affect me, to know that I was not there for my family. when this was happening, when this happened, with my sister's dad, when she needed, family around her. So you chose not to tell me that. And I don't even have the words to say to you right now. I can't even talk to you right now.
Wow.
Because I felt it in my heart. I felt so betrayed by him that he would do that.
Yeah, because it's like, how is he going to keep something like that away from you?
Exactly. Well, I began to see clearly what he was about. and it was selfish, and he was worried about himself. This is something he wanted to do, just like getting in that water when it was dangerous.
Y'all should have left when the lifeguards was sitting on the rocks. Y'all should have just said, oh, you know what? We're going to leave. We'll try this another time.
Berenice, they were instructors. Oh. They were certified divers and instructors that were sitting on those rocks. We were new at this. I would say we were only certified divers for a year or so when this happened.
Wow.
So we weren't as experienced. I mean, we did cave diving as well. We did cave diving at Votex Springs and Martian Springs. And that's 100 feet down in the caves to the mouth of the cave. So we were doing this, like every other weekend. We were going to these weekends in Florida.
Yeah.
This particular one was a birthday celebration, and he didn't want anything to spoil it. And so he withheld that information because he's selfish. Because it was all about him and celebrating my birthday and didn't want to ruin the trip. And I just looked like, this is not the man that I fell in love with.
Yeah.
What is going on here?
Yeah.
How is this possible that you have no consideration for my feelings and for my family and I? And we've been through a lot together.
Wow.
We had to overcome the abortion. We had to overcome my getting kicked out of the house. All of these things. He cost me a lot.
Yeah.
And I was very, I want to say green about relationships and dating and men. And I didn't have a role model at home because I had no father.
Wow.
So when I realized who he is and what he is all about, I began to not, I began to resent him.
Yeah.
And the more and more I saw, all of these things, my choices and what I did for him and for us, I was fighting a battle that was one-sided. Like, you're not doing anything for me to make me want to love you and stay with you.
Wow.
Right? Because of what happened in the Panama Cities, the accident that could have gotten killed. Now he's withholding information that I should have known about and made my decision to make. So I see that, you're controlling me, you're, manipulating the stories and the things that are happening in my life to get what you want.
Yep.
Which I thought that's what he wanted, was me. And then our child, he showed that he didn't want the child. So where's the love in that?
Exactly.
So I began to see things and seeing him and outgrowing him.
Yep.
And then when we got back and I decided to go see my family. And I realized what had happened. I went away for that weekend. So that's when he brought someone else into my home.
Wow.
So, and I shared that story about the feminine hygiene in the bathroom.
Yeah.
And then he lied. I said, you lied about that? What else have you lied to me about? So I began to see how he was
manipulative.
Yes,
to get
and that
his
he
way.
wasn't in it 100%.
Yep.
In the relationship 100%. So that to end the relationship, I had enough. Like, that to me was the final straw. And I, left and moved out with just the tote bag full of clothes. And
I can't believe he only let you take your tote bag and
Yeah, well,
y'all
I think
bought
it-
all
and
that stuff together.
I think he wanted me to come back because he kept pursuing me. I went to college, and he would come and try to get me out of class. He was harassing me. Come back. I want you to come home. Come home. And I said, I'm not coming back. We don't have a home together.
Good for you.
Yeah. I said, I can't live like that anymore. And what I was feeling in my heart was that I was outgrowing him. He was still playing games with me and my emotions and my feelings. And it was too much. Like, I was just feeling, I wasn't feeling the love.
Yeah.
I was feeling like, you know what? You are being cocky and arrogant, and you're not the person I thought you were.
Exactly. That's not who I fell in love with.
Right.
I missed the old Mark. Well, the Mark that was, that Mark probably was a fake.
Right.
He probably was acting like somebody else, but that was his real personality coming out.
Yeah, I started to see the things.
Yeah.
His true colors, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
With the flirting.
It was too much.
With the people in the grocery store, just little things.
Yeah.
And it was just too much on me. Like, I really did not feel like this is a man that I want to spend the rest of my life with. I, believed he was that person in the beginning. Yeah. But it turned out, that he was not that person. Yeah. And I started to see who he really was. Yeah. And I didn't like who he really was. And so that relationship ended. And so I started to work. I did some modeling, and I was working at the convention center. There was times where I had extra parts in a movie. And I was doing everything I could, to get a job and work and take care of myself. And those things, one thing led to another. I was actually working for a hotel, and I walked into one of the businesses because I was a corporate sales rep. And as I walked into this business, it was a solar company. And I gave a presentation of who I am and where I came from, what hotel, and what we had to offer. And the owner of the company was in another office, his own office, but I was speaking to a manager. And the manager said, thank you, you can leave the information with me, and I'll give it to the owner. And I turned around and I walked out. It was in the Howard Plaza, which was an office building downtown. Okay. And so it had lots of offices in there. And when I turned around and walked out of the glass doors, he followed me out to the elevator as I was waiting for the elevator, and asked me to come back in the office, that the owner would like to speak to me. And so at that point,
that was the owner?
The owner wanted to speak with me. He heard me talking to the manager.
But who followed you out?
The manager. The man that I spoke to was the manager. Okay. He followed me. Well, he came after me. After I walked out, he was waiting on the elevator. He came back out to the hall and said, Miss, could you come back in here? The owner of the company would like to speak to you. Wow. And so I went into his office.
Can you say favor?
What's that?
Can you say favor?
Favor? Like God's favor? Yeah, that was God's favor, because that was the person that I needed to speak to. Yeah. But actually what he did is offer me a job. He said, I like your presentation. I like the way you spoke to me. Spoke to the manager. Yes. And I wanted to speak to you because I'm going to offer you a job. Wow. I would like for you to come to work for me. And then it was, we were working with solar energy. And so I said, well, let me think about it. We talked for a good hour or so. And I said, let me think about it, and I'll get back with you. And so I got the job. I gave my notice, and I left the hotel, and I went to work for him. And one of the things I did was I was going, teaching people how to go door to door, asking a questionnaire. And back then, people were welcoming you to their homes. Yeah. They would answer the door and ask a questionnaire, and all of that was part of my job, to train people. Yeah. Because the leads that we would get, then we would make appointments and go into the homes and talk to them about making their home energy efficient.
Is that solar panels?
Yes, solar
Okay.
panels.
Yeah, because we were thinking about getting them at one time.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I worked for him and was working, and they were going in neighborhoods all over Louisiana, southern Louisiana.
Yeah.
And I was in Lafayette, and one day, and my friend Cheryl, my elementary, friend, who was my best friend back then, and she moved away, and then she came back to Louisiana, and we worked together. I hired her to come to work with me, and so we worked together. And one evening, we were driving back from Lafayette, and we decided to stop at this neighborhood bar that had a band playing, and we were exhausted from our trip coming back in town.
Yeah.
So we stopped there for a nightcap, right? To just go listen to some music and maybe have a glass of wine or something.
Yeah.
And when we went in there, the band began to play. We were kind of early, and the band started playing. And that was the night that I met my husband, Robert.
Was he in the band?
There. No, he was there. It was the band was playing the music, and we stayed, and we were dancing, and we were having a good time.
Okay.
And he was there. He caught my eye. I caught his eye. And we were just, he actually was very subtle in coming to meet my friend, Cheryl, and introducing himself to her, and wanting to find out the scoop. Is your friend married? Is she single? What's the scoop on her? That kind of thing. Well, I was out dancing on the dance floor. And so...
he's getting the juice.
He confessed all of this. But anyway, so I met my husband there, and that night, really, he and his friend were out, and me and my friend were out, and so he was asking if we would like to go have coffee after the band stopped playing, and it was morning call. I don't know if you're familiar with the morning call.
Yeah, because they sell beignets.
Yeah. So you have the coffee and the beignets. And they were open 24 hours.
Yeah, they still are. They in City Park now.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we went there after our little night out dancing and listened to the music from the band. And he asked me out on a date. And the night that he asked me to go out with him was my nephew's wedding. He was getting married. And so I said, I'm sorry, but I'm not available that night. I have other plans. And he says, look, I understand. You're just not interested. I said, well, I didn't say that. I just am not available
that night.
Yeah. And so he says, well, I'll tell you what. Here's my number. Give me a call. When you are available, I'd like to take you out to dinner. Well, I never called him, And so guess what happened, though? My nephew and his fiance broke up and did not get married that day.
Oh.
They ended their relationship.
Wow.
Suddenly.
I like that word.
Yes. And so I went out to the same club that played music, live bands there, the night that we were supposed to go on this date, but I had this wedding. And so I was able to go out, and I wanted to go there to see him again that evening.
So was that a place that he frequented? You knew he'd be there?
I just took a chance and went there. And I called my friend. I said, look, I'm not going to my nephew's wedding because they canceled the wedding. They're not getting married. And I know this person might be at the club that we were going to. I said, would you like to go with me? I said, I think he might be there. And if so, then I can just, let him know that the wedding was called off. Yeah. And she said, sure, I'll go with you. So we went out, and sure enough, he was there.
Oh, wow.
And he and I, we were there for a good hour or so before he actually saw me. And came over. And he says, hey, wait a second. I thought you had a wedding to go to. Yeah. I said, yes, but it was canceled. He was dancing with somebody else, and I was dancing with somebody else. And he approached me on the dance floor.
Oh, wow. Did he whisper in your ear like, I thought you had a wedding to go to?
Yeah, I had the wedding, but it was canceled. canceled. And my nephew didn't get married. It was canceled. And he just said, oh, yeah, that was just a line.
Exactly. He thought you was lying to him.
I knew you would. I said, I knew you would say that. But I'm honest with you. He canceled. They did not marry.
Yeah.
And for the better, they didn't marry.
Yeah.
And so I came here to let you know that it was canceled. And here I am.
Yeah.
So that's when it all started. Okay. And then he asked me out on an official date.
Uh-huh.
And guess what? The night that we went out on our first date, it was a nightclub. Now you have to understand, this is when the nightclubs were in and people were out dancing all the time.
Yeah.
And we're there at a bar, and it's packed, and there were 2 seats at the bar. Mm-hmm. And so we walked up, and Robert and I sat at the bar, and I had to go to the bathroom. So I said, I'll be right back. And this is our first date. So I go to the bathroom, and then I come back out. And so I see that there's a lady sitting there. These were 2 ladies that were at the end of the bar when we first walked in. And they moved closer, right? They moved in, and one of them sat in the seat that I was sitting in. And so I came back out of the restroom, and I walked up to the counter there. Robert had given one of the seats. He gave both of the seats, actually, to them. But he was standing next to the seat, trying to save the seat for me, but then he let her have that seat. Yeah. And so I walked up to her. I said, excuse me. I said, but that's my seat. And she looked up at me, and she looked at Robert, and she got out of that seat and gave me back that seat. And so Robert said, wow. He said, wait a second. I said, look, okay, I went to the restroom, and you were supposed to save that seat for me.
Exactly. He should have said, this is my girl seat.
I said, so you were supposed to be saving that seat for me. And he says, I was, but I was being a gentleman too. I said, I figured you were going to be a gentleman and give her my seat, but now I'm back, so I want my seat back. And he says, wow.
More so,
you're a woman that you demand, respect here. I said, well, thank you, because I don't want to be standing up in these heels all night. I want to sit down.
Exactly.
And she knew it. Like, she made a move over closer to us to get that seat. And I understand. But when I came back, I just approached her, and she got right up. Not a problem.
Yeah.
Gave it back to me. So we were sitting there, and we were waiting for a table closer to the dance floor. Well, guess what? We found a table, and I pointed to her, and I said, here, you can have this seat. And I gave her back the seat, and we went, and we moved to a table. So we go and we sit down at the table. And then someone walks up to the table, my ex, Mark.
Ooh.
As we sat down, he saw us, and he walks up and approaches us. And he's being Mr. Cool. Hello, DeDe. Wow. Can I talk to you? And I looked right at him, and I said, Mark, I said, I have nothing to say to you. And Robert's looking at me and looking at him, and he's like, what's going on here? And he said, DeDe, if you would like to take a few minutes to speak to this man, go right ahead. I'm okay with that. And I said, Robert, I'm fine. Mark, we're done.
Wow.
So, go on by yourself, go do what you were doing.
Yeah.
But no, I have nothing more to say to you.
Wow.
And so Robert said to me that evening when we left there, he was driving me home. He says, DeDe, and he said this later on, okay, he didn't say it that evening. He thought about this, and he told me, I don't know, maybe months later. He says, that sealed the deal for him. This is my wife.
Wow.
This woman, okay, the way I handled the other lady at the bar, and the way I handled my ex-boyfriend, my fiance. He says, wow. He says, I I think I'm in love. I've never seen a woman talk like that and act like that. And he said, you sealed the deal for me. If you would have got up and went with Mark, I understand.
Yeah.
Because this is, we're new. We're not even a couple yet.
Yeah.
We're just beginning. But for you to do what you did for me and respect me because you're out with me on a date, and it's our first date, showed a lot of respect. I respected who you are. I looked at you as a strong woman, a powerful woman. Yeah. And with all respect, that sealed the deal for me. I fell in love with you. So I've never seen that before.
Action spoke louder than words.
Yeah. And so, yes. And he told me and confessed that, he loved me and I could do no wrong. Like everything, sure, baby, sure, when we were dating, he just loved it. And so our relationship started off, where it was over with. Like when I saw Mark, I didn't have those feelings for him anymore. Yeah. That was over. And I was ready to move on and start over and have a new beginning with someone that will appreciate me and love me. And so Robert and I, we fell in love. And during the time we were dating, I was doing the solar energy, and we dated, I want to say 2 years we were dating. And I was going to the racetrack with Robert. Robert liked the horses. And we would have dates and go in the clubhouse and have dinner and watch the horse races. And he would be betting. Yeah. And we got to where we were going regularly to the racetrack. And I was thinking, wow, he sure likes to gamble a lot. Think to myself, is this a problem? Why are we spending so much time?
Red flag.
Yeah, and I'm realizing, though, I enjoy it as much as he does, but we don't have this kind of money to be betting every single race. Yeah. And I'm asking him, what are you doing that you are spending that money on each race? Nobody wins 12 races. Yeah. And so in some races it would be the winner, the daily double, the trifecta, like 3 different horses, placements in the horse races. And he's betting every single one of those places, the win, the double, daily double, and the trifectas. And I'm like, you can't do this every single race. You'd be running out of your money for sure, and this is something that can be a problem. Yeah.
What did he do what kind of work did he do?
He was in the air freight business.
He owned it?
He worked there.
Oh, okay.
He worked at a freight company at the airport. Okay. He's like the supervisor. He runs the place, just supervises it. Okay. Like a manager or, someone like that. And he was working offshore, but, he was also showing me pictures the very, very first day we met that he had 2 daughters. That he was married and had 2 children. And he was showing me how they looked like little dolls. They were beautiful babies. And I saw that, okay, this is a dad and he has 2 little girls. So, and the first time I met him, he's showing me pictures of his children. So this has got to be a good dad. Yeah. Right? That he's showing a woman that he's interested in, or his baby's picture. Yeah. And I don't have any children. At that point, I didn't have any. And I was like, wow, this is a good man, thinking to myself, Because who does that? Most men don't pull out their wallet and start showing pictures of their baby.
That's a woman thing.
Yeah. And so that got me, I was sentimental. I like that about him right from the start. I'm not a single guy out here. I have responsibility. I have children, and he and his wife they split up. And, it's a sad story, but his ex-wife, when they were going through their divorce, and I think they were legally separated, and she got in a motorcycle accident. And her boyfriend was killed in that accident. Ooh. And she was left in a wheelchair, pretty much surgery after surgery on her legs. She was thrown from the motorcycle and had a lot of broken bones and a lot of surgeries that needed to be done. And so she could not take care of her children.
Wow.
So he had his children. And he lived with his parents who were helping him take care of the little girls while she was getting well. The ex-wife was getting well.
That must really be hard.
Yeah, I met him after that accident had happened, and he had the 2 children living there with his mom and dad, helping him raise these 2 girls. So he shared that story with me.
Wow.
And the ex-wife was kind of messed up because of seeing the accident again, witnessing her boyfriend getting killed.
Yeah.
So that was trauma in that situation. So he had custody of the children. And when we started dating, he brought them to meet me. And I was out at the pool, and they wanted to come swimming.
Yeah.
And I met his little girls that day, and he introduced us. And from that moment on, I fell in love with his 2 daughters.
Wow.
They were little, they were precious, they were beautiful. The oldest one, let's see, the baby was about 18 months old, and Rosalind was probably 6 or 7. She's a little bit older. No, she was probably 5 or 6. And when we met, and the one thing she mentioned, she said to me was, "Ooh, you have cat eyes." You know, because first of all, she's going to be loyal to her mother. I'm the girlfriend, and I have green eyes. But that's what she said to me. She didn't say, "Oh, hi." She said, "Ooh, you have cat eyes." And so I was like, "Ooh, I don't know. Is that a good thing or a bad thing?" And Robert just looked at me and he laughed, you know. He's like, "Oh, Rosalind," you know. But yeah, so I was taken back by them, you know, that they were that precious and so young.
Yeah.
And okay, so if I get involved with this guy, you know, he's got children and are ready for a family and all that kind of stuff, you know. So I was also in the process of a career change. So when we fell in love, Robert and I dated, and we fell in love, and we had talked about marriage. And one of the things he was like, "Okay, what do you want to do?" And I said, "Well, I just got hired on Delta Airlines. I got to go to Atlanta to be go through a training."
You were a flight attendant?
I got hired.
I used to want to be a flight attendant.
Them when we met, I was leaving Gulf Power and Energy, that's the company, the solar, to find another job. And my sister, well, we had a family friend that was with Delta Airlines for like 30 years. So she had seniority, and she said, "DeDe, if you want a job with Delta, I will get you the interview. I will speed that interview, you know, accelerate the process if you really are interested." I said, "I am very interested." And so I got the interview, I got the job, and I was going to Atlanta for the training. But I met Robert, and I fell in love with him. And one of the things at the training in Atlanta was that I was not sure where I was going to be stationed. What state?
Yeah.
Dallas, Atlanta. They couldn't tell me through the training where I would be, you know, which hub I would be working out of. But I knew it wasn't going to be Louisiana.
Yeah.
They did tell me that.
Delta's not based here.
What's that?
Delta's not based here.
No. I had to go to Dallas or Atlanta.
Yeah.
And so I'm thinking, oh my gosh, here I am getting the job of my dreams, and I can't do it. I just can't do it. I just fell in love with this guy, and there's no way he can leave Louisiana. He's got 2 daughters and an ex-wife.
Yeah.
That's not going to happen. I can't do it. I don't know what to do. And then I get a call from my agent, a modeling agent, that I got selected to go to Milan for my modeling.
Wow.
Career. And that they were looking for this sultry type, you know, my exotic look. They were looking for someone, not an all-American girl, but an exotic look.
Yeah.
And that I fit the description
of
that person. And one of the things, I was not professionally trained. A model. Like for runway and stuff, they didn't want someone who was professionally already trained to retrain them.
And you know, I went to Barbizon when I was in high school. Me and my best friend. We went all the way. Well, I went all the way. She dropped out because we paid our own tuition. And her dad was giving up trouble over it, so she ended up stopping. But I kept on. I went all the way to our graduation was a runway show.
Yeah. They teach you all of that.
Yeah.
Well, I did go there and I spoke to them and I just started modeling. I didn't even finish the school. I didn't go through the process, and I was already working. Wow. And so what ended up happening was I had to make a decision. And I spoke to Robert, and he's like, DeDe, I just want you to be happy, and whatever decisions you make, this is very exciting for you.
Yeah.
This is a very exciting time in your life, and you need to make some decisions here that you can live with.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, Robert, you just don't know how difficult this is. Yeah. This is something I dreamed of happening, and it's happening all at once. Exactly. I meet you. I get this opportunity for Delta Airlines, and I get this opportunity to go to Milan for modeling career. And it's all happening at the same time. And I don't know what to do.
Yeah.
And so I said, I got to pray about this. I was living with my sister at the time. My sister was going through a separation, and we had a condo. She had owned her and her husband owned a condo on the lake.
Okay.
When I was dating Robert, and we lived together, and I was saying to her, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. There's so many choices here I have to make, and I have to live with the choice that I make. And she's like, I know, honey, that's a lot, and you need to pray about this. You know, Robert has children.
Yeah.
He's not going to move.
Yeah.
You know that.
Yeah.
But just to help make some decisions, some wise decisions, you know, I'm just letting you know these are things that you've got to consider.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to also let you know that in the loop of everything that's happening here, I get pregnant. Again.
By Robert?
Yes.
Wow.
And so I'm having to make another decision. Do I choose my family and this man?
And the new baby?
And the new baby? Or abort it, take the whatever job, whichever job I take, you know, the stewardess job or the modeling career in Milan. Whatever I decide, I have to live with. Right? This is a big decision to make.
Yeah.
And I would do it all over again. I chose love.
Yeah.
And I chose the family.
Yeah. You chose right.
Yes. But I really was torn. Because my sister kept telling me, she said, you know, you could still have this baby. You don't have to marry him. And you could have the baby and you still could have your career. And I said, how could I do that? The baby wouldn't have the father and the mother together. And no, I came from a broken family. My father passed away. I never knew my dad.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't want that for my child.
Yeah.
So no, I'm going to choose to stay with Robert.
Yeah.
And have this baby.
Yeah.
And so I did.
I'm sure he was overjoyed.
Yes. And the girls, and we told the family, DeDe's pregnant and we are getting married. And it was, you know, within 6 months or so, we rushed to get the marriage, the wedding together. Yeah. It was the worst wedding I'd ever been to. The pastor, the priest that, you know, the pastor who I was born again at their church, he was the pastor who was going to marry us. He was hours late for the wedding. He forgot that it was our wedding day.
Whoa.
And I didn't follow up with him the week of the wedding because I figured, well, you know, they do weddings all the time.
He's on it. He got this.
But my oldest brother, gave me away, and he said, DeDe, the day of my wedding, because here we go with the wedding bells. You know, we went and got married, and we're getting married. And I was telling him, I said, you know, I haven't really heard from the pastor or his office to confirm the time and everything and the day. So he may have forgotten. He says, because all your guests are arriving, but your pastor is not here.
Whoa.
And I said, what? You're kidding me. And he's like, no. And he was trying to reach him on the phone and nobody was answering. So then finally he answered the phone and he was in bed. Because it was a 7 o'clock wedding. It was a candlelight wedding. And so my brother told him that to please get dressed, get ready. There's a wedding that's taking place right now, and I'm coming to get you. Whoa. And bring you back here. My sister will get married this evening. And so the pastor got up, got a suit on, and got over there to the wedding. And let me tell you, this wedding started, the reception started before the wedding. We had held up the wedding that hour and a half or so going to get him, that they opened up the bar and they opened up all the food. Everybody was eating and drinking and being merry, you know, celebrating a wedding that hadn't begun yet.
Oh, wow.
So we had the reception before the wedding because everything is in the same place.
Wow.
And nobody was out there to really control what was going on.
Goodness.
And so all I know is I had to redo my makeup again and again because the tears just kept flowing.
Yeah.
It can't be happening, you know.
And then you was pregnant, so them hormones was really
it was
raging.
Everything that could go wrong went wrong.
Yep.
On my wedding day.
Oh.
So it was really one of the worst weddings I'd ever been to, and it was my own. Oh my goodness. But we ended up having a good time after all was said and done. We ran out of food. It was embarrassing. They ate up all the food. Well, you can't keep guests there for 4 hours and 5 hours or whatever how long it was and not expect them to eat and be hungry, you know, and drink. They drank up everything and they ate up everything. My brother was like, should we go run to Popeyes and get some more food? I said, please do not leave, Daryl. You've done enough. Thank you. But no, we run out of food. It's over. The party is over.
Exactly.
Okay? We're
Time
married.
to go.
That's the most important thing. Yeah. We're married.
Wow.
But unfortunately, that is my story. It was the worst wedding. Now, we danced and we had music. We had problems. I never even heard my pianist. I had a pianist to play during the ceremony. And actually, he left right after the ceremony.
What?
So I never got to really hear him. It was a mess. It was a mess.
Wow.
But the good thing is that we were married and we had fun. Mm-hmm. You know, we ended up going to our honeymoon suite and we didn't care. It was just like, I'm glad it's over. Yeah. I just wanted to be married and have this baby with you. And he said yes to me and the baby. Mm-hmm. And that touched my heart and healed me, you know.
Especially from your mark wound.
Yes. Yes.
What are you going to do as if it's your fault?
That's right. That was healing. That I had a man that was willing.
Man.
To marry me and do the right thing.
Can't live with him and can't live without him.
Yes. Now, right before, though, we got married, there was a red flag, I will say. Mm-hmm. I was emotional, and I asked Robert, where have you been today? Because I hadn't been in touch with him all day. Uh-huh. He said that he was working. I said, really? You were working? Out of town. I said, oh, I didn't know that. You didn't mention anything. And so, I don't know, maybe a week later or so, went to the track with him, and I bumped into a coach, a friend of his, and the coach was telling me about Robert and him going to the track. It was the dog track.
Wow. So he did any kind of betting.
The day he was supposed to be working out of town, he was out at the dog races.
Wow.
And I was like, Oh, and when Ray said that, his friend, who was a coach, he saw the surprised look on my face. And I looked and I said, Ray, I said, you just said something. He is in trouble now. And
wow.
Ray's like, okay, bye. And he left. He walked away. He knew Robert is in trouble, that I now know the truth. It's amazing how God gives me the truth about things. Okay, where I do have a feeling about something, but I can't
put your finger on it. Yep.
There's something not quite right about that.
Yep.
That he didn't call me all day, and he didn't tell me that he was going out of town. Why are you withholding information?
Yep.
What's the problem? Why can't you communicate that?
Yep.
And then I find out it's because he went to the racetrack of dog track.
And it was out of town.
And it was out of town. So that red flag, and my antennas went up.
And how long into the marriage was this?
This, you know what? Come to think of it, this probably happened right before we got married.
Okay.
Now that I'm thinking about it, it was before we got married, because I called his brother, who was the best man. And I asked him, does Robert have a gambling problem? So it was right before we got married.
Wow.
That this happened. So there was a red flag. I was getting ready to tell you, this was a red flag for me. And when I caught him in a lie about the races, the dog races, why would he lie to me about that? And I was talking to my sister, who I live with. We were talking about it, how it bothered me, that I found out that he lied to me. And she said, DeDe, she says, why don't you call someone in his family, someone close to him that could talk to you about whether this is a problem or not? Ask them the questions that you have, that you're asking me. Because I can't answer that for you, but someone who's close to him could.
Wow.
And so I called his brother. And you know what he told me? The brother said, stay away from him. Do yourself a favor and run. Not walk, but run.
Was this before y'all got married?
This is right before we got married. We were engaged to get married. We were getting married. But when he lied to me about the dog races, something wasn't quite right. Like I had a sick feeling in my stomach. Something wasn't right. Like, why is this man going to lie to me about that?
Something so little.
Tell me. Okay, I went to the dog races, but don't lie and say you're working and you're out of town for the day. Because I'm going to be your wife and you're going to be my husband.
We need to be honest with each other. Up front.
Honesty is the best policy.
Always.
And so why would you, not tell me the truth? I was just curious. Why? And so his brother was saying that he was sick. This guy is sick about the racing, the horses and gambling. And I was like, this can't be happening. No, I can't believe this. And my sister's looking at me and she's saying, he's telling you the truth.
Yeah.
You asked him, he's telling you. But what are you going to do? And I just cried and I was like, oh my God, help me, Lord. Help me to understand what is happening. I'm in love with this man. I'm carrying his child. We're engaged to get married. And now I find out he has a gambling problem.
Yep.
And I participated in this problem because we did it and we went on dates. We went in the winner's circle with friends of his that own the horses. I mean, it was a fun thing to do. I had no idea about a gambling problem.
Yeah. You just thought, that was something y'all did. That was entertainment.
It was entertainment. So I had to deal with that conversation with him that, I spoke to a family member, someone who knows you very well. And he said to me that you have a gambling problem and that I should run and not walk, but run from you. And he was like, oh, don't pay him any mind. I said, no, I need to know this about you. And he says, look, I like the horses. You've gone with me to the racetrack. I said, yes, and we spend a lot of time there. And it concerns me because you lied to me about going to the dog races.
Yeah, no, he likes gambling, period. Not he likes the horses. He likes the dogs and anything else. He likes sports. Did he ever?
He likes it all. And
I was gonna say, because I remember when I got divorced from my second husband, in order to make ends meet, I would gamble on. I had this coworker. He used to be in this ring of guys, and they used to place bets on the games: basketball, football, tennis, whatever you could bet on. And I had no idea about professional sports, so I just tell him, okay, I want some money, put so much on, so and so, and he knew everything. It was like you were saying, you put he knew the terms and everything. It's like I was so green, I didn't even know the terms.
Yes. Well, guess what his nickname was out there at the track?
What?
King Capper.
King Capper.
He's the King Capper. He was handicapping races. He would go out there and give people his picks of the day. And people would give him money to bet on their races because people had jobs, people were working. And he would find a way to get the bets down for these people, doctors, lawyers, friends of his.
Wow.
Who were betting what he picked because he would handicap the races. He knew the horses, he knew the breed, where they came from, who their parents were, all of that. He would read the form. And he would come up with some winners, and they would all be gambling with him. And it's like their social life, just gamblers kind of hang out together, just like athletes hang out together. And, people that do different clubs and stuff, that was his club. That was his like man cave type of thing. He would go there and socialize and bet races.
Wow.
He loved the horses. And so I would go with him. Let me tell you, I was walking around the track with my big belly, pregnant, to be with my husband out there when we got married, because I still proceeded to go forward with the wedding, even knowing that his brother said stay away from him.
Yeah.
He warned me.
Wow.
But, what does a 20-year-old know about gambling? I don't know anything. I've never been exposed to it. Now, I did go and visit him at the track, and he would give me money sometimes to bet.
Yeah.
I didn't know what I was doing. I would just say, okay, I'll just bet on whatever, a name or a number.
Yeah.
And sometimes I won. I had beginner's luck or whatever. And he would say, you're my lucky charm, and want me to come out more often with him. And then I started thinking, okay, if I do this and he's doing this, who's going to be responsible? We have bills to pay. We have children to raise, I can't get hooked on this thing.
Yeah.
Because I could see, we went, for years we were going together. And
like how
we have
often?
We have both walked out of there penniless.
How often were y'all going? Was this an everyday thing?
Yeah, well, there would be particular races that he had friends that either had a horse running, or they were going to the Kentucky Derbies. There were all these races.
Yeah.
He would go almost every day if he could. And he would bet, or he would get his bets down for the next day. He would go home, read the form, and then go and place bets, and then go back to work on lunch break. However he was doing it, he was getting it done. And I didn't know the extent of it.
That's like an addict.
He was an addict. He was sick.
He found a way.
Well, when I found out he was doing all of this, he wasn't just doing horses and dog races. Mm-hmm. He was doing it all. Sports.
Yeah. Like I say,
he was betting it.
Uh-huh.
And I kept wondering why our bank account we had no money. What's going on? I just deposited my check. What's going on?
Yeah.
And it was a nightmare. I really was losing respect for the man. Mm-hmm. I just never experienced anything like it.
Yeah.
I didn't like what we were doing. He was including me in on it. He would bribe me and saying, look, okay, I have my children. The girls are coming over every other weekend. They would come to visit us. Mm-hmm. And he would say, here's $100. They'd call it a croaker. Here's a croaker. Go take them to dinner and to a movie or something while I go to the track And I said, Robert, I'm going to take them and do something with them on Saturday. But Sunday, we're going to church and we're going to have family time.
Yeah.
And you're not going to the track. Because I'm going to cook a roast and some potatoes and baked macaroni for us. And we're going to have family time. I put my foot down when it came to that. So Sundays was our family day. And I took the girls to church, but he never came. He wouldn't come with us unless it was Christmas or Easter, then I'd have him, promise me that he would come to church. So he knew I was a Christian woman, and I loved church, and I loved the Lord.
Yeah.
And he used that against me. You're supposed to support your husband and be a good wife.
Yeah. But how he gonna
all of that?
How he gonna tell you that he ain't no good husband?
No, I said, you are neglecting your family.
Exactly.
And you're spending more time with the four-legged filly.
Exactly.
It's like having a love affair with the four-legged filly.
Yeah.
Rather than being home with your wife and your children.
Had you had the baby by then? Your first
baby?
baby?
Then I had Brandy, my daughter. That was one of the best years or best times in my life was having my baby, and I loved being a mom. I loved having her. And one of the things I asked him is, Robert, I would like we moved in with his parents so we could save money because we lived alone. We lived out. We got married and we had a house and everything. And when he lost his job because he was spending time away from the job, going to the track, and it caught up with him. And so he lost the job, and I said to him, when I have this baby, I want to take I want to take a year and a half to be home, a stay-home mom. Mm-hmm. And after that, I said, when I stay home and be a mom when the baby comes, he said that he wanted an opportunity to be a full-time gambler.
What?
He wanted me to give him 1 year to do gambling full-time.
And not work?
That would be his job.
Oh, who's that?
He was going to, like he's been doing with booking the races and stuff, getting the money from people and booking the races.
Okay.
Like a bookie.
Okay.
And he was going to try to make a business of it. For 1 year, he asked of me, after the baby is born and I stay home with her, he wanted to know if I would honor that agreement. And I said, okay, I agreed to it. Mm-hmm. After the baby is born, I'll stay home with her for a year and a half, and then I'll go back to work. And in that time, since we're going to stay with his parents, we don't have a large overhead, a house note, all that stuff. 1 year. And then you have to, if it doesn't work out, you have to go back to work. So that year, I went back to work. Now I got a job in retail. I worked at Florida Paris, which is a boutique on Royal Street down in the French Quarter. Uh-huh. And it was a milliner shop where they make hats. And it was all the feathers and, just high-end boutique. Uh-huh. I don't know if you're familiar with Yvonne LaFleur, Florida Paris. They just had high-end, unique styles. Uh-huh.
I'm not, but
okay.
I know down here, a lot of fancy fruit stuff.
Hats were big. Hats were in. They had it was like a specialty boutique down in the French Quarter, which is a lot of tourism down in the French Quarter. Yep. And so I started working there, and while he was doing the gambling thing, and he was able to get our daughter, from daycare and stuff when she started school and all that, and then come pick me up downtown. And so that's what we did for that year while he gambled. For a year. And when the year was up and we were still broke on living on my salary,
wow.
I said, that's it. That's enough. It's not working. And I don't want to live with your parents forever. And it's time for you to go back to work.
Yeah.
Well, guess what? He refused to go back. And
So
he
he didn't
continued the gambling.
He didn't understand that he needed some money in his pocket and not to be dependent on his wife's money.
Exactly. He never went back to work. To this day, he never went back to work.
Are you serious?
I am very serious, and he's 71 years old now.
Wow. So Brother Man was serious about that.
Yes. So he was addicted, and he had a problem. And I did not know the extent of the problem until the lies and the stealing and the cheating, all of the things he was doing, he was trying to hide from me. God was exposing him to me.
Wow.
And I just caught him in, the lies. And then finally he started having people call the house wanting to know, where's Bobby? His name's Robert, but his nickname gambling is Bobby. Where's Bobby? I'm like, Bobby who? Wait a second. Robert? You mean my husband Robert? Yes. I said, well, he isn't home at the moment. Can I help you? And they're like, just let Robbie know to please give me a call. It's urgent that I speak to him. So he wasn't answering the phone. He was avoiding people.
Who were they? They were bookies?
Yes. And so he owed money.
Oh my God. This is a whole... Your life
This man hit big.
Woo!
He hit a couple of big races. When on our honeymoon, we ended up at the track. Okay. We ended up going to the track for a race that he couldn't miss. And he won. And, we were there, and he was blowing the money just as fast as he won it. He was blowing it, giving it right back.
Wow.
And I was like, you're not going to give all this money back, are you? Are we leaving here a winner? We need to leave, because he was betting every race. And he's like, DeDe, I got this. I know what I'm doing. No. I said, no, please. I just want to go. I want to leave. I don't want to spend my honeymoon out here. Don't you understand? This is our honeymoon day. Enough is enough. Let's go. I had to get him out of there.
He couldn't even wait until the next day. Y'all were on y'all honeymoon and he was at the track?
Yeah, because he had to be at this next race that he didn't want to miss. So we ended up going there. Yeah, during our honeymoon. So it's a lot of that kind of stuff, where he was doing things that were just crazy. Like, I look back on it and
that's crazy.
That is crazy stuff. So while we were married, about 3 years into the marriage, Robert hit a big race. And he sat me down. He says, DeDe, I want to buy you something very special. And I had a band, a wedding band. And he says, I want to buy you a ring. I gave you a wedding band for the wedding because we got married quickly.
Yeah.
And we were, expecting the baby. So I didn't have the money then. He says, but I want you to know that I appreciate who you are and everything. I love you.
Yeah.
And I want to prove my love to you, that I want to buy you a diamond ring. So I want to go shopping for a ring.
Wow.
And so we did. We went shopping. And I'm thinking, okay, this is wonderful. He's turned a new leaf. This is something. I'm hoping that, he's sincere and that he loves me and he realizes what he's been putting me through. Things are going to get better now. He's finally coming to his senses, right?
Yeah.
And so we go to Oakland Heart, which is a diamond store, a jewelry store on Metairie Road. And he knew the owner, went to school with him. He went to Rummel High School, and the owner went there as well. And so he says, this guy I know from high school, he will, give us a really good deal. And I really would like to buy you something.
Yeah.
Beautiful. You deserve it. Okay. So we go in there and we're shopping for a ring, and I'm looking at all the diamond rings. I love this ring. It's in the case, and I'm looking and I said, wow, I really like that. I would design it a little bit different, with some rubies, because that's my birthstone, and I love the pear-shaped diamond. I'm just picturing my ring, and how to design the ring that I really want. In my own mind, I'm thinking this, and I'm seeing it in the case. And I'm like, wow, that is the ring that if I were to design my own wedding ring,
Yeah.
that I would have designed myself. This is what I've seen in my, just picturing it. And so he says to the guy, Tommy behind the counter, could you show my wife, I want to see this ring. We're looking for a wedding ring. And he pulls out that ring, and I put that ring on, and I'm like, oh, I just fell in love. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
It's the most beautiful ring I've ever seen.
Yeah.
I love it. I think it's the most beautiful ring in here. And I looked around, I walked around the case and everything. So then he says, okay, so let me show you. There's a couple of others I want to show you. And he showed me 2 more, and it didn't compare. None of those compared to the first one.
Yeah.
And so I didn't even know price. I didn't talk price. I just looked at the ring. Well, the ring that I chose, or the ring that I picked out, he didn't even ask, look, how much. I guess between the 2 men, they talked about the price.
Yeah.
And then he says, well, DeDe, he says, is that the ring you want? And I said, well, Rob, that all depends, because it's a beautiful ring, no doubt. But it's price that I'm more concerned about now. What is the price? And at first he got quiet and he didn't say anything. And I said, no, really, how much is this ring? $10,000.
Whoa.
It was 3-carat diamond. It was magnificent. No, truly.
I can imagine.
Beautiful.
For $10,000.
And I'm thinking, okay, hold on a second. We don't have that kind of money. Robert says, yes, I do. So he bought the ring.
Wow.
Now, let me tell you, he won a lot of money that day.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know if it was that day, a week ago.
Well,
whatever,
in order to drop $10,000 on a ring.
He had a lot of money.
Yeah.
He had a lot of money. And so we bought that ring that day.
Wow.
And he was just like, I hope you love this ring, because this is a gift from me to show you how much I appreciate you and all that you have done, and how much I love you. Wow. Okay, so then I really, honestly, did not feel guilty about that, because I've seen the money he was blowing at the racetrack.
Yeah.
And if he can throw away money like that,
literally,
or food money, then hey, maybe this would be something that I could always sell if I needed the money.
Yeah.
To pay bills.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So, okay, I'm thinking, okay, I'm going to go ahead and let him do it.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a beautiful ring, and I treasured it, okay?
Mm-hmm.
So later on, within the months later, I'm getting ready for work, and I go to put on my ring, and my ring isn't there. And I'm looking around, I'm like, okay, did I lose my ring? Oh my God, I'm panicking. Where did I last take it off? Because I didn't take it when I took showers and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I had a little ring holder.
Yeah.
And I didn't see the ring in the holder. And I'm thinking, I must have put it in the bathroom somewhere. Let me go look. And I'm looking all over the house for my ring, and I can't find it. And Robert had already left. So I'm like, oh my gosh, I hope I didn't lose this ring. What happened? I'm trying to go back and retract all the places that I went to the night before. And where did I put it down and leave it? So I go to work, and I'm calling my husband to let him know, did you see my ring? I left it at home. I feel naked. I'm at work, and I don't have my ring on. Could you please go check for me? I know I left it in the house somewhere. I know I had it, and I took it off at home. And, he says, by the way, he says, I took it to the jeweler to get it cleaned.
Okay.
And I'm like, honey, you took my ring to get it cleaned? That is so sweet of you. I said, you didn't tell me, and I was looking all over for it. I was worried that I lost it or something, or misplaced it in the house somewhere. But thank you. I appreciate that. That is so sweet of you.
Yeah.
Wow. And so I'm working. I'm telling the ladies at work, my husband took my ring and had it cleaned. he went to the jeweler and dropped off my ring to get it clean for me. That is the sweetest thing, because, I cook and everything, and I had my ring on. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it would get dirty and stuff at times, and I would just take it off and rinse it off and everything. Yeah. So I thought, wow, the ring is fairly new. I didn't realize it needed to be cleaned.
No.
But, okay. So I didn't think anything of it.
You poor thing.
3 or 4 months later, I'm looking for my ring, and my ring is missing. And I'm like, wait a second, what's happening here? So I called him again, and I said, Robert, have you seen my ring? And he says, DeDe, he says, actually, I put it in the jewelry store to be repaired. One of the prongs where the diamond sets up looks like it's loose. I don't want you to lose that diamond. So I put it in the shop, and they're fixing it. At Oakland Heart, at the store where I bought it. Okay. I purchased it. So I just wanted to, make sure that there's no loose, prongs on there that you're going to lose that diamond. And I said, oh, okay. Okay. So I came home and everything, and so I decided, well, the next morning I didn't even talk about it. I just left to go check on the ring. Mm-hmm. I went to the jewelry store myself. And I said, excuse me, I said, I'm Delores, Barocco. I said, I came to pick up my ring. Do you have it here? Is it ready for me to pick up? Mm-hmm. And he says, the lady says, hold on 1 minute, let me check. It's here, you brought it in to be repaired? I said, my husband brought it in. He said that, they were tightening up the prong or on the diamond, mm-hmm. where it sits up on there. I forgot what it's called, but I just, they said that it would just take a day or two. And I could get it back. So I was coming to pick it up on my way home from work. Mm-hmm. And she says, okay, well, just wait right here. I'll be right back. And she goes in the back, and she's looking through all the jewelry and stuff, and she comes back out, and she says, ma'am, she says, your ring isn't here. There's no ring here for Delores Barocco. I said, really? I said, well, is there any way that my husband could have picked it up, earlier? And she says, hold on a second. And she went to get the jeweler. I forgot what they call them, but the person who works on the jewelry, on the diamonds and the gold and the silver, all that stuff. And he came out, and he looked at me, and he says, I said, do you know what happened to my ring? I purchased the ring here, and my husband brought it in to be cleaned, and also to have the prongs tightened, fixed to secure the diamond. And he says, Miss Barocco, he says, your ring has never been cleaned here, and your ring has not been fixed here. We've never worked on your ring. And I said, really? I said, well, is there another jeweler? Do you send it out to be fixed or to be cleaned? He says, no, ma'am.
Wow.
I said, oh. I said, okay. Well, thank you. And my stomach, it just dropped. Like everything in me, I felt faint. I was thinking, oh my God, what did he do with my ring? So I waited for him to get home, and I asked him, Robert, why are you lying to me? And he's like, what? What did I lie about? What are you talking about? I said, I went to the jewelry, Oakland Heart, where we bought the ring. And they said my ring has never been there to be cleaned, and it has never been there to be repaired. So where is my ring? And he just put his head down. And honestly, actually, it was twice that it was cleaned. And one time it was repaired. So that's 3 times he asked me for that, or he took that ring to be.
He was pawning that ring.
Correct. I was getting ready to say it. I couldn't even.
No, because I did that.
You took it out of my. No, you took the words out of my mouth.
No, Fisher's jewelry store. We don't have our wedding bands because I forget what it was, but I needed money for a bill when we first moved down here. And Fisher's, it's a jewelry store, but they have a pawn shop on the side. I forget that side street name. The name of the street that the pawn shop is on the side. Yeah. And I took them, and I lost our rings.
Oh.
And
I
they were
understand that,
beautiful.
because if you don't pay them back,
yes,
you lose it.
Yes.
You have a certain amount of time to pay it back.
Yep. And I didn't have the money. I didn't have the money.
Oh my gosh. Well, you know, that is what he was doing for his gambling. To keep up the gambling. Yeah. And what I found out is, with the pawn shop, because the ring, and I had the papers and all that on it, they give you 10% of what it's worth. Yeah. So he got $1,000 for that ring. That's why he wanted that big diamond. And he spent the money on that ring, because his intentions were that if he needed the money, he could always pawn it to get money to gamble. Wow. And then he had to figure out how he was going to get enough money to pay it back, to get the ring, before I knew it was missing. Exactly. Or before I realized what was going on here. Yeah. So that's what he was doing with the ring. Our marriage symbol, right, of our commitment to one another. Mm-hmm. Something so sacred. Yeah. He was pawning it. And I said that ring means nothing to you. Yeah. That commitment and that symbol of our love, you would pawn it away in a pawn shop? Because if you don't have the money, you don't get it back. Yeah. And you took that chance, and you lied to me about it. Mm-hmm. I said, what's going on with you? You need help. Yeah. This is not normal. And I just, in my gut, knew, this is too big for me to handle, Lord. Mm-hmm. I cannot keep going through this with him. Yeah. Over money. He's not like, where we are big spenders, we live extravagant lives. Yeah. We're getting paycheck to paycheck. Yep. This is not money you can gamble with. Yep. This is our livelihood. This is what we live on. This isn't gravy. This isn't, just money that you can throw away. Exactly. We need it to survive. And so I just kept thinking, that God, you have to help me here, because I don't know what to do for him. I don't know how to deal with this. We have a child, we can't live like this. So, we kept going on, and I was working, and honestly, like, I went to, all of this was happening. His family knew he had a problem. His ex-wife tried to warn me about this, all along, going back and forth with the children, how he wasn't really being a good father to them when they needed him. He always had to go to the track. He missed out on games. He missed out on dancing. He missed out on their lives. Did you get the ring back? I did. We actually got the ring out of the pawn shop. And I was able to talk to him, since it wasn't important to him, this union, this commitment, and our wedding symbol of our union. We were headed for a separation, a legal separation. Wow. And I decided, okay, so I'm working, and I ended up leaving Florida Paris. I was actually stopped in the mall going to work one day by a manager of Cachet in Canal Place. That manager had been pursuing me, trying to find me. She saw me a couple of times going to work when we expanded. Florida Paris expanded to another store there in Canal Place. And her name was Kathy, the manager of Cachet in Canal Place. So she met with me in the mall and said, I would like to interview you. I am interested in hiring you. We need a manager at Cachet. Would you be interested? And I said, well, I like my job. I like what I'm doing here at Florida Paris. But I would be interested in listening to what you have to say. What is the job, entail? And she says, well, I'm a manager. and we have two managers that have keys, opening and closing the store.
Okay.
And I need to hire another manager. And would you be willing to interview? My DM is coming in town next week. I'll set up an appointment for you to meet with her.
Mm-hmm.
I'm interested in hiring you. I like your look. I like the way you're dressed. You caught my eye several times. Finally I got to meet you, you know, and I wanted to offer you a position. And I said, okay, I would be willing to do that. And so I met with her DM, and we discussed the opportunity. They were giving me an opportunity to make the move.
Okay.
And offer me more money, commission, benefits, a lot of things that I wasn't getting from my present employer.
At Florida Free. Okay.
It was a boutique. It was a small business owner, and it was a great shop, and it was a unique shop.
Okay.
I love the hats and all that, but it was time for me to make a move.
Yeah.
Because I needed to provide for my family. And they were giving me more opportunity to grow with the company. And,
yeah.
Management paid well.
Mm-hmm.
And so I wanted to go back and give my notice.
Okay.
That yes, I am interested in taking this job that was offered to me, and I'm giving my notice. Well, at the time, the owner didn't want me to leave. And so he upped my pay. He increased the pay to keep me. I know that that's a wonderful opportunity, but I can give you a little more money.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, well, why didn't you do that?
In the first place.
Now that I'm leaving, you're offering me more money.
See,
and so I thought about it, and I prayed about it, and I accepted the offer to leave and go with Cachet. And so I did. And I worked there for Cachet for a good 4 years or so.
Mm-hmm.
And I was the opening and closing manager of the store, and did inventory, and we had to sell. We were managers that sold, so we worked with clients. And we definitely, Roxanne was one of the managers. I was a manager, and I met a lady, Georgia, who were part-timers, and Miss Francis. So there were four of us, and Kathy, who was the one who hired me. So 3 managers and 2 part-time people.
Okay.
And we were all selling managers. So everybody had to sell in the store and work with customers and clients. So we did. And the business is good. That was the first the first store. There's a national chain. Cachet is a national chain.
Okay.
But that was the first store in Louisiana.
Okay.
And then they opened 2 more stores after I left. So during the time there, I got really close with Kathy, and Roxanne was her cousin. So they worked together, and then me, I was in there as well. And eventually Kathy left. Left, and Roxanne became the store manager, and I was her assistant. Mm-hmm. Okay, and so we worked together. So part of the responsibilities of working there was that we had to make deposits.
Yeah.
And we parked there in the parking garage and paid a monthly parking fee as employees there.
Yeah.
And there was an area where all the employees parked their cars.
Did you guys get a stipend for the to cover the parking fee?
No, we had to pay our own parking. We paid our parking monthly.
Okay.
It was a contract that we signed. And they gave the employees, I guess it's a discount rate.
Yeah.
We were a small company, though.
Yeah.
But we got, whatever it was, that monthly fee had to be paid every month. Mm-hmm. So I remember this specifically one time after working there for, 3 or 4 years, going into the parking garage, paying my monthly parking. Well, one time I went to leave, and I forgot to renew my parking for the month, and they wouldn't let me out of the parking garage.
What?
And so they said, well, you're going to have to pay the daily rate, or else your car has to stay here. And it was a weekend until Monday when the office is open.
Wow.
And I said, you're kidding me, right? I said, look, I don't have any money on me right now. I don't have no cash. Well, ma'am, I'm sorry, but you're going to have to park the car, and the car cannot leave. I said, but I'm a monthly person. I'm a monthly parker. I have a contract. I just forgot to renew it for the next month. So she said, I'm sorry. I said, okay, great. So I'm thinking about it. Well, I have the deposit. I have cash. So what I'll do is just take $20 out of there, pay her for the daily parking, and go to my bank ATM and take the $20 and put it back and make that deposit. Yeah. Right? For the company. And I did. That's exactly what I did.
Okay.
So only I knew that, right? So I'm sitting down having lunch, and I talked to the manager, who was Roxanne. And I explained to her what happened to me, how I was put in a position where I just had to borrow the $20 to get out of the parking garage, that they would not let me pay because the office was closed.
Yeah.
And I didn't renew my parking for the month. And she wouldn't let me leave the parking lot. So I took the money and I paid her. But I said I went to my bank, and I went and got the money.
Put it right back.
Put it right back and made the deposit. So I was just confiding in her.
Yeah.
That I experienced that the evening before.
Wow.
Right? Well, about a month later, she was having issues with her husband, and she was seeing her ex-boyfriend. She's married, but she was talking to an ex, and she was not paying attention to doing her duties at the store. And she was leaning on me, and I'm going through a separation with my husband. We're having problems as well.
Yeah.
I said, look, you need to focus here. When you're here, I need you to help me do what we're responsible to do every day.
Yeah.
And you're on the phone with this guy, and you're talking, and you're leaving the store and going on lunch breaks and coming back an hour later or whatever, and I can't
cover you.
I can't cover you because I got my own responsibilities here. And, I mean, this has to stop. So she took it as a threat. And what she did is she reported me. So one day, she reported me.
For borrowing the money and putting it back?
For that story. She used that story. She had nothing else to go on. So she used that story against me. And so one day, I walked into the store, and it's glass. The front is all glass, and there's displays, mannequins in the front of the store. And I walk in, and I notice there's a lot of people in the store. Well, the district manager, the head honchos were in the store, 2 guys and a woman, RDM. And I walk in, and I go to the back of the store, and I go to the office, and I'm going to put my purse and my things down. And the DM follows me back there, and she says, Delores, she says, have a seat. And I said, okay, what's going on? And so she says, we need to talk. And so she says, I have to ask you a question, and you need to be very honest with me and tell me the truth. Did you or did you not take money out of a deposit? We have policies and procedures, and I need to know if you took money out of a deposit at any time.
Wow.
And I said to her, I knew exactly what she was asking me.
Yeah.
And I knew exactly what someone told her.
Yeah.
And I thought about it, and I looked around, and I answered yes. She says, okay, get your purse, get your belongings. And she escorted me to the door.
Wow.
First, she handed me the pink slip or whatever that. I was dismissed.
Is it really a pink slip? I've never gotten one.
Well, it was like 3 pages, white, yellow, and pink. And I think she handed me the pink one, whatever that it was, to dismiss me from my employer.
Wow.
Because I broke the company policies. And she knew I was not going to lie about it. Even though that was the thing nobody had to know about that. I was confiding in her.
Yes.
What I did.
And she betrayed your trust.
And she betrayed my trust. and she reported me because it was like a threat to her when I said, you need to be here, you need to do your job and get your mind right, because I'm going through a separation right now, and I have to focus, and I'm having a struggle with that because my husband's calling me, and I don't take the calls. He's even come to the store, and I tell him he has to leave. Yeah. Because we don't want that drama here. Yeah. And one of the things this DM said to me early on when I started working there and I was having problems in my marriage, I walked through their doors and I was crying. And I was trying to wipe the tears away, and she could see something. I was upset, and something was wrong. And she said, come here for a minute. She says, Delores, come here, I want to talk to you. She says, you see those doors over there, those glass doors? And I said, yes. She says, when you come through those doors, you leave everything behind. All your personal problems and stuff, you leave that behind. And when you walk through those doors, she says, it's showtime. You got it? She's looking at me. You got it? Wow. Like, in other words, you dry up those tears.
Exactly. Leave the outside world outside.
Leave those behind the doors behind you. Yes. How you like that? So that's the same DM who told me to sign the paper and that I was escorted out the door. Wow. That day. So that's how I ended up leaving Cachet. And during that period of time, I was going through my legal separation. The ring, I had to get rid of the ring because it didn't mean anything to him. I put it in an auction. I said, look, I want to sell this ring. Let's put it in the auction. And they gave me $5,000. I had a friend that put it in the auction for me. And I received $5,000. And that was my money to move, ticket to move to California and get away from my ex-husband. Well, I was still married to him. I was legally separated from him. And I told him, I'm leaving. I'm going to California. And I'll go spend some time with my family up there, get a job, and see about, living there for a while. And that's what I did. Wow. I used that money. First, it was like a little vacation. My friend Mary came up there with us, and we moved. And I stayed in California, got a job there. And then Robert followed me up there about a year later. He ended up coming up there saying he changed everything. He wanted me to come back. He wasn't going to gamble and all this kind of stuff. Well, he ended up gambling when he was up there in California. And my daughter exposed him. I said, okay, I'm going to go to work. You take the car and you watch the baby on a weekend, Saturday. And so they did. They went to the car. And so they picked me up after work. And my daughter, I said, did you have a good day with Daddy today? Yes, Mommy, I did. We went to the park. I saw the horses.
It's no horses at a park.
I said, horses? What? So come to find out,
Busted.
There's a track right there in California that Rob went to, and he took our daughter.
Wow.
Nothing has changed. And he was lying to me again. Yep. And, then I ended up leaving him on the street corner in the cold and said, that's it. Leave us alone. You got to take care of yourself. He was desperate and on the street in the cold, had nowhere to go. So he ended up going into a shelter. He had no money and no place to stay. So that was hard to do, but it was tough love. I could no longer, allow him in our lives with this problem that he had, and I wasn't going to let him take us down with him. So anyways, that ended.
It's a running theme with him. He had a good job at the airport, was a manager there, and lost it because of what? Gambling. Then he supposedly had another job that he lost. Why? Because of gambling. It's like addiction.
Yes. And he just believes the lies he's saying. He's believable. Like, you really want to believe him. Yeah. He's convincing when he talks. He's convincing. And I really gave him another chance again in California. prove himself and to take care of our daughter, spend some time with her. And I mean, she, out of the mouth of babes, she told me what I needed to hear. It's like,
because it's like, what park has horses?
Exactly. Every time he lied to me, God would expose him.
Exactly. And she didn't even realize. She was just telling you, sharing her day, her experience with her mommy.
And she was a baby, right? And so wait, this particular track had a playground where people could bring their kids.
Oh my God.
He wasn't lying about the park. There was a park next to it with swings and all that for the kids to play while their parents gambled.
Wow.
With the horses. It was beautiful. It was surrounded by mountains and everything. It was a beautiful track. But that's not what he's supposed to be doing.
Exactly.
When he's trying to get back with me. You know, and tell me that he's changed, that his life has changed. He realized all these things that he's done wrong. And he wants to make it right. But it was a lie. So anyways, he ended up going home. Got the money, I guess, wired to him from his parents.
Uh-huh.
He had good parents, but they were enabling him.
Yeah.
That was the problem.
Yeah.
They stayed together all these 60-something years, and you know, they were Catholic, devout Catholic believers, and they loved their family and they loved their children, and they'd do anything for him. Unfortunately, it was to his detriment.
It usually is when they're enablers.
Yes.
That's my mom.
But they're like, what are we going to do, Delores? What are we going to do? Can't let him stay out on the street.
Exactly.
He's our son.
He's a grown man.
He's a grown man, but he's still their son because he's sick. And that's the way they looked at it. You know, he's got addiction. You know, he's got a problem.
So they feeding his addiction. And that's helping? How is that helping?
They brought him home. They brought him back to Louisiana.
Wow.
And then I realized...
Did they actually come up there?
What's that?
Did they come up there, or they just sent him the money to come back?
My Brandy's grandmother, Mama Ida, his mom, would write letters to me while I was up there that she missed us and hoped that we're doing well. She stayed in touch with me and with the baby.
Wow.
And so, and that was something very important to me, to have that relationship continue, because I love them.
Yeah, exactly.
It was their son.
You don't have to
son that was the problem.
not have anything to do with the parents, because Lord knows my first husband was appealed, but me and his parents got along well, because I lived with them before we moved up, and I can look back on his upbringing, and his mom was an enabler. That's why that was the majority of his problem. But they were nice people. They were nice to me.
Yeah.
So I had no right to treat them bad because of what he did to me.
That's right. And that's how I was. I continued the relationship all the way up until they passed away.
Yeah.
You know, having a relationship with them. We celebrated Christmas together every year, even though we're divorced.
Yeah.
My ex-husband and I and the kids. So that was important to me, you know, that the children, and that's, we were the first in both families to get along with exes. And that was God, all God, because I remember struggling as a single mom raising my children. I was calling him, where's, child support, Robert, I need help. These bills are coming in. I need some support.
Yeah.
And whether he was winning or not, you need to pay up. Some money.
You made them. You need to help take care of them.
Yeah, exactly. So, but it was a fight, constantly with him to give me the money.
Yeah.
At times when he was doing well and gambling and winning, he was generous. Mm-hmm. Let's go eat pizza. Don't cook. I want to take y'all out. Mm-hmm. And we did. I went with them. Yeah. Because I wanted our children to see that we can get along.
Yeah.
That we're okay. We're not fighting all the time.
Yeah.
But the times where I needed the support and he wasn't able to lie and say, okay, I'm going to come and give you the money. Pay the bill and I'll come give you the money. Well, that would go a week and then the next week and then a month. Yeah. Still lying, telling me he's coming and never come and bring me the money. So those were the struggle that's a struggle that I had. And finally, I just kept praying, God, you are my source. You are my provider.
Yeah.
I can't depend on this man. He is not dependable.
Yeah.
Help me, Lord, to raise my children and provide for my children. I cannot do this alone.
Wow.
And so my whole thing was that I finally said, and it was the Lord that put this on my heart.
Mm-hmm. I
called him up and I said, Robert, you and I had these children. And I said, I work and I know, this your weekend, my weekend, this weekend is your weekend, this one's my weekend. I don't want to live like that.
Yeah.
Every day is our day.
Yeah.
To raise his children.
Yeah.
Tearing them apart, going each weekend back and forth to mama's house, to daddy's house.
Mm-hmm.
I don't like doing that to my children.
It wasn't meant to be like that, but unfortunately, in this broken world, a lot of times that's what happens.
Exactly. And it wasn't meant to be that way.
Yeah.
So we came back. Shortly after we came back, I interviewed and I went to Saks Fifth Avenue. Mm-hmm. And got hired at Saks Fifth Avenue.
Wow.
With my experience, I worked there in a store in California. And when I left there, that was in management there. I came back to Louisiana and I started working really from the rock bottom of the store in sportswear department there, and worked my way up. Actually, I was in the selling floor, just a salesperson. And shortly after about a year or so, Robert and I started seeing each other again. Believe it or not. He was telling me again, sweet talking me and telling me how he's really working on himself. He went to a couple of gamblers meetings. I'm really doing good, DeDe. I'm doing better. I'm doing much better now. And started talking to me, sweet talking, and how much he missed me and wanted to spend time with the children and get the girls together, his two older children and my daughter. And
yeah.
He's missing, his family, missing me. He was very complimentary.
Of course.
He was beautiful.
He was
to work. You got a job at Saks Fifth Avenue? Yes.
Savoir faire.
Wow. He says, you're going to do great there. You're a beautiful woman. You could sell anything. You're a good salesperson.
Yeah.
You love working with women. I see
Yeah.
how excited you are about work.
Yeah.
He says, you're going to grow with that company. You're going to do well with that company. And I said, Robert, thank you. He's encouraging me.
Yeah.
He's flattering me.
Mm-hmm.
Sweet talking me. And I'm like, it's like, I just want that in my husband. I want that.
Well, who wouldn't?
Right.
Your husband is supposed to be your best friend, your best supporter.
Right. And he had a great personality. It was fun to talk to.
Yeah.
Exciting. We had a great romantic relationship when we were dating.
Yeah.
It's like, where did that all go?
Yeah.
Where's the person that I first met? That it was exciting, but it was the sickness.
Yeah.
He couldn't help himself. And that was sad. I mean, it was the lies that I had to deal with. The manipulation, was going on. Trying to make up stories and not telling the truth about what was happening.
And that's
I never dealt with that before.
Yeah.
Someone who lied all the time. And it wasn't like I said, look, I can handle everything else. I said, but I can't handle a lie.
Yeah.
You lying to me. Tell me the truth. I can handle the truth.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a great line in good. It was a movie with Tom Cruise and Timothy.
I love Tom Cruise.
Hawkins. I think it was Good Guys or something like that. It was military.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the actors said, "You can't handle the truth."
Yeah.
But Tom Cruise was a lawyer in the Army or in the Air Force, whatever, service. And that line, it's like, people can't handle the truth.
Yeah.
I told him I can handle the truth. It's the lies that I can't deal with.
Yeah.
Just tell me the truth. We'll work it out.
Exactly.
So, but he couldn't. Part of it was shame. Part of it was guilt.
Mm-hmm.
That he really wanted to produce the things that he was saying, but it didn't work out in his favor.
That's the trouble. They have
Yeah.
good intentions, and they hype you up based on their intentions, but it never works out. It falls through every time.
And he's making promises he don't intend to keep.
Yeah.
Disappointment to the children.
Yeah. And that's
disappointment to me.
Well, it's disappointing to everybody.
Yes. And I got tired of it. It's like, this is just, it keeps on happening.
Yeah.
And it's not going to change.
Yeah.
And so I end up pregnant for my second child. We went to Florida. Yes. We came back. He sweet-talked me into my life again. And we conceived my son. Well, I had told my husband when I first had my daughter, the year after she was born, I was like, I could handle just having one child. We have three.
Yeah.
We have my two daughters from his first marriage.
Yes, and your
Brandy.
daughter.
That's it.
Yeah.
We have three children. That's enough.
Yeah.
I said, you have to support your two daughters as well, so that's plenty.
Yeah.
But if I don't have another child by the time I'm 30, I'm not going to have any more.
Mm-hmm.
Well, guess what? I was 30 and pregnant for Hunter, my son. So it was meant to be. It was meant to be.
Wow.
Now they're 7 years apart, or 6.5, 7 years apart.
Yeah.
And so I am blessed to have my son, Hunter. He was a big baby. Like you, I had him, vaginally.
Wow.
And he was a 10-pound baby.
What?
Yes, right under 10 pounds.
No, man. That put my little 8 pounds, 3 ounces to shame.
I know it. And I worked.
Oh, my
God.
God.
I was working in retail, pregnant for him, in heels, dressed to the tip. As a pregnant lady, I got compliments in the food court that was, you're the most beautiful pregnant woman I have ever seen.
Yes.
And some of the guys in the food court that worked in the office building, compliments, and women complimented me. I was glowing.
Wow.
And I was going to church, and I was like, Lord, I am not going to let Robert and the gambling rob me of the joy of being a mom again.
Yeah.
And I'm going to enjoy being, having this baby and enjoy my pregnancy. And I did. And I was happy. I was glowing because I had so much joy in my heart.
Yeah.
It didn't matter what was going on with him.
Exactly. It don't matter what's going on in the world. Happiness comes from within.
That's right. So I was just excited and thrilled about the future. And with or without him, whether he changes or not, I'm going to enjoy this baby and enjoy my children and my family that I'm going to have. And that's all I focused on. And I would go to church and I would pray, and Lord, I'd have difficulty sometimes with the reality of what was going on.
Yeah.
My marriage.
Yeah.
Because I wanted, this is the happiest moments of your life. You're supposed to be happy and enjoying it. You know?
Supposed to be.
Yes. And unfortunately, it doesn't always end up that way.
No.
But you got to take the joy of the moment to moment.
Yep.
That are precious.
Yep.
And embrace those, not the negativity and the things that are going wrong. And so that's what I chose to do, is focus on the positive things that were going on in my life.
Yeah. Knowing
that we were on the verge of breaking up for good, even though I was pregnant and having this second child.
Wow.
If he never changes, and then we found out we were having a boy. And so I'm thinking, okay, God, maybe this is what he needed to change. Maybe this is what it's going to take.
A son.
He finally gets a son. He's always wanted a son.
Mm-hmm.
He loves his daughters.
Yeah.
But he wanted a son.
Yeah.
And then we picked a name. We had a list of names. We ended up agreeing upon Hunter being the son name.
Wow.
And Hunter was born. Beautiful baby. In fact, my doctor said to me, I was having a big baby, but not, an average sized baby.
Yeah.
And when he was born, and he came out right under 10 pounds, okay?
Like, what do you mean right under?
He looked at me, and he said, no wonder you were in so much pain, because he was underneath my ribs.
Oh, my God.
He had nowhere else to go.
Ooh.
And I was 5'8", height.
Yeah.
I was long in my torso, but there was no room, no more room. He couldn't grow any bigger. And so when I delivered him, the doctor said that this baby is beautiful. He says, he looks, and he held him up like Hercules.
Uh-huh.
Okay? He was so big. His chest was huge. Poor baby. He was perfect. He was perfect. He was beautiful. And so Robert was in his glory, looking up at that child and seeing him. And it brought so much joy to me to see that he got his son.
Yeah.
Something he's been wanting.
Yeah.
And this is it, Lord. This is his chance to help him, change.
Yeah.
Make a decision to do the right thing by his family.
Exactly.